Welcome to the Church Collective podcast. In this episode, myself and Chris had the opportunity to talk to Jordan St Cyr about his self-titled album, about his song Fires, which if you haven't heard, I would just encourage you to go check it out. It is an incredible song. We also talked about how he really felt the Lord calling him for a big move for he and his family, for struggles in personal life and what you do with that and how you can respond to the Lord in that. He also gives a bunch of insight into worship leadership, what he's thinking when he's leading worship, and I hope it's an encouragement for you. There's a lot to learn, so I'd encourage you to just grab a notebook and take some notes. So here we go with the Church Collective podcast.
March 4th, got a new album coming out. March 10th, hit the road with Jeremy Camp and Riley Clemens. I'm stoked for that. More recent than both of those, my wife and I, our 4 kids, just moved to Nashville, Tennessee from Winnipeg, Canada.
Oh wow.
We are 2 weeks into that journey, and we're in the oh my gosh, what did we do phase, right? You dream about a move like this for so long, and then you do it, and you're like, oh my goodness, God, did I hear right? Are we right in this? And so that's kind of where we are right now. And but we are loving it. We're so grateful to be surrounded by people that share a lot of the same vision and heart for the people of our world, and to share just a message of hope and of faith, ultimately, that we can believe that God is good and He is for us.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to kind of just jump straight into that, because I know transition is a big thing for so many worship leaders, and there's always this sense of am I supposed to just keep digging in where I am, or am I supposed to, is it time to move on? I'd love to just hear, everybody's different, but that's a big move. How did the Lord work that?
As a younger person, as a very, a way more immature person, I was, really willing to risk so much. And we've been planning, thinking about, dreaming about this move for about 6 years, and the timing was never right. And what God really impressed upon my heart is, you've got this dream of music in ministry. However, there are so many answered prayers in your life that you have right now that I want to reveal to you. You once prayed and dreamed for an amazing, beautiful wife, that would be your companion throughout this life. You prayed, that you would one day be a father, that we would both be parents to kids, and that we would have great neighbors and have an awesome house to live in. And He gave us all those things. And I would say probably in the last 2 to 3 years, I let go of this dream of moving to town and being a part of, what I thought my dream was going to be about. And I think it was through that surrender, God rebirthed really that dream. I was given the greatest piece of advice that I hated for many years about moving. And it was someone in the industry here, and he just said, let this town bring you here. And I think as a father, we do our best to imitate God and His provision by going out and working and bringing home a paycheck. But at the end of the day, the best we can do is imitate God and His provision. And but it takes resources to provide for your family, to put food on the table. And it wasn't until really the music started bringing in an income, and I started getting busy on the road, that it practically made sense. And really it's all God's timing that brought us here.
Yeah, and that's awesome encouragement. Talk a little bit about so you've got a history with YWAM, worship leadership. Maybe just give us, how did you get started? That's always, and maybe you could have some encouragement for it seems like the young worship leader wants to be a recording artist. That's always the way to go. Right. And so it's not like you can just prescribe that path, but maybe just speak to this younger worship leader, talk about where you came from, and what kind of encouragement would you have? Yeah.
For me, what got me into music was really just a love for worship. I grew up in a very small town in a Christian home, and everybody impressed upon me, their relationship with God, and music kind of gave me my own relationship at a very young age. My faith became my own, when I was 11 or 12. And what really got me started, I guess, was a youth leader reached out to me. We're come from a small town, not a lot of people in our youth group. So if you had the inkling that you might want to maybe play guitar and sing, you're the worship leader, so that was me. And I love to sing, and but I was a terrible guitar player, terrible singer, but I was competitive by nature. And so the task had been put forth before me, and I went for it. And I just not only was I competitive and committed to playing hours, locked in my bedroom every night, I was building a relationship with Jesus in those moments, in those formative years. And God gave me this gift of, really the gift of desire, and desire, the byproduct of that was getting better at guitar, getting better at singing. And that's really what got me into it. I also, we had many people come to our church, and guest, not even like big artists or big names, but guest worship leaders and also speakers. And I fell in love with hearing about people's stories. And so to the YWAM question, we had a lot of people come through our church and just speak about their experience with YWAM and how worship played an integral part of their journey and their faith walk. And so I knew when I was about 15 years old, I'm like, I want to do that. As soon as I'm done high school, I want to, do something in that area, missions, just growth, walking with the Lord. College and university weren't necessarily, my thing. But anything missional, I was locked into. And so I ended up kind of working out my high school schedule, where I finished a half year early. And so I just got to work. I went and worked for like an electrician, and did all the practical steps to really fulfill the desires that God had put on my heart. And so spent 3-4 months at the Montana base in Lakeside, Montana. And then I did a mission in New York City shortly after 9/11. And we worked in soup kitchens, and we worked in food services with Salvation Army. And it was really, again, the testimony of others that led me down the path where I am today.
Was guitar your first instrument, or did you have any musical background before that?
Not really. Like I was an athlete, and then I just stopped growing, and I was, batting against pitchers who were 6'3", 6'6", and I was like, I gotta find something else. And there was I really love to sing. I wasn't even great at it, but there was something inside of me that always needed to get out. And so I just felt, called to pick something up to support singing. And so when I was about 15, 16 years old, I picked up the guitar, and haven't put it down ever since.
How did you like learn off YouTube, or did you get a teacher, or what?
YouTube, we didn't have YouTube yet. Yeah, no. For me, I think really I didn't have a teacher. It was those simple worship songs, learning simple chord structures. Oh, this is the key of G, this is the key of C, these are the chords that mesh with that, and always having new songs to learn for next Friday or next Sunday was really what provoked me to just learn on my own. Those church chord sheets, with the lyrics and the chords above them, that was my YouTube. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about so the songs that are coming out on this album. Where have they come from? What's the process been like?
Yeah, okay, so there's one song that's not like the rest. All right. So the one song that's not like the rest is a song called Fires. Fires was written from the vantage point of just one man's story, going through a hard time, God coming through, revealing his faithfulness, but allowing him to walk through the hard time, and really refining his faith and proving his faith genuine. I had not been through a season in my life yet that was so deep and dark where I needed to wholly depend on God. So you've got Fires, which came from just my heart resonating with this man. His name was Nathan, his story. And then 6 months after that song was written, my youngest daughter was born with a brain condition that is, it's a lifelong thing. Like it does not get better. And the other 9 songs were written from that well, which really, God just kind of set us up with this song Fires. And he just impressed upon my heart and begged the question, Jordan, is it still true? Is it still true that I am just as faithful and just as good as you said I was? And that basically is the story of the album, is walking through our fire. And really, I think you come to a crossroads when you get to a point in your life like this. You can either, do it on what strength you have left, close your fist around your circumstance, take on all the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the depression, try and hold your future together, or just kind of open your hand up and watch what God's going to do. And I think this album is about just watching, what God has done in our lives and the faithfulness that he has revealed to us in such a deeper way that we didn't know before.
Yeah. Do you have, sorry to hear that for your daughter, but I'd imagine there's incredible encouragement that you could give to the worship leader that week to week, like how do you dig when I'd imagine at the start, you don't really want to dig, you don't really want to worship, but God works in incredible ways through that. So maybe speak to that a little bit.
It's so important that we lead our hearts, that we stand on the truth. I often talk about marriage, and when you first meet the love of your life, you're in the honeymoon phase and it's so easy, and then things get real, right? Because love is an action and less of a feeling. And so what is our metric as worship leaders? What fuels us to keep going? And I think we have to remember our first love, so when things get, for my wife, Heather, and I, when it's like, oh man, why am I not feeling it today? I just have to go back to the reason why I just absolutely fell in love with her in the first place, how amazing she is. And it all comes back. And I think we need to do that with our relationship with God, and also our relationship with leading people into that moment where, we're calling their spirits to rise up. For me as an artist, now having so much support, we've got such a big team around us. What is my reason for doing what I do? Because it used to be, man, if I just had that record label, or if I just had that, and that was the drive. But now that's here, I need a new standard. I need a new metric. And I think it's the same as it was back then. It's just now I can identify it. And it's like, I'm here to leave the world a better place than I came into it. It's about impact. It's about people. And the only way I can serve people is by digging in with God in my personal life and making that a priority.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Can you talk about for the album, like what was your writing process? Who did you write with? Who produced it?
So, God gave us this deep well of, kind of a new message to speak to people who have unresolved issues in their life, who have not received their miracle. We believe in the God of miracles, but we're in between, the miracle and the not yet. And so what I found is that is most of us, and God is using that season to refine us and shape us for the work that he has prepared for us to do. And so it was really about using that message that was so prevalent in our life in every kind of writing room. I would just bring this message, bring titles and hooks and lyrics, really all pointing back to the season of life God was currently walking us through with our little girl. And it was just a beautiful thing because it resonated with so many of our team that was going through so much personally that they just had not brought to light, because we like to talk about the win or the miracle, but where do we stand when, we're in this gray season of, is God talking to me? Is God answering me? How come I don't have my answer to prayer yet? And I think gave everyone permission to just take a load off and realize that, hey, we're all in this together. I got to write with some amazing people. One of my favorite tracks on the album is a song called Good Pain. And I wrote that with Matt Hammett and the main producer of the album, Micah Kuiper. Matt Hammett has been through, a whirlwind of just health stuff with one of his sons, Bowen. And it was just an amazing, time of ministry for me, just from one dad to another, walking through stuff that we're just trying to, figure out today, and tomorrow we'll get there when it comes. So Matt was great. Micah Kuiper produced 8 out of the 10 tracks. AJ produced a song called Weary Traveler that we wrote with Matthew West. And that was a song, one of the last songs we wrote for the album. And it was just, for me, I just thought about my wife the whole time, I'm on the road. She's at home with our 4 kids, our youngest with a chronic illness, and she's, bearing that weight alone. Even though it may feel lonely, she isn't alone. And I think it was just a message I wanted to impress upon people to just hang on. This world can seem dark, but when we gain that heavenly perspective of, what we can hope for, in the next life, I think it starts to shift our decision making and the things that we do in this life. One of the last songs that we wrote, other than Weird Traveler, was a song called Yours. And I actually produced that with my brother, Evan. So my real brother, not my bro, but he's just a great dude. And, one of my favorite verses is in Matthew 22, where it just says, love God with, all, paraphrase, love God with everything you have, and Jesus goes on to say, this is the greatest commandment. And the next is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And so, my closest neighbor sleeps, 1 foot right next to me, my wife. And I wanted to write something meaningful for her, that just kind of impressed upon her heart how I felt through this season of life. And the chorus just says, I am yours, whatever the weather we're facing, I am yours, no matter the storms we've been chasing, I am yours. And so just whatever we go through, I'm going to do my best to imitate God's consistency in our lives, because I'm chasing after him. And so, yeah, man, we've got a ton of other writers on there, and just some amazing artists that have been through a lot in their personal life. And I think those are the songwriters that were able to kind of dig deep because of their personal circumstances they've walked through, and God being faithful in them.
Do you ever have a hard time spending time with people that don't seem to have any problems in their life?
Yeah. Oh man. I hung out with an artist friend recently, and he said, don't trust anyone that hasn't been broken. And I'm just like, boom. I love that, because I think, to a degree we all have. And I think the way we have conversation is just our recognition of that brokenness. And some people don't recognize it. And I just, as an artist, I kind of wear it on my sleeve. It's a badge of honor. And it's just sharing, this is why I need Jesus in my life, is because this is who I am. And it's not a victim thing. It's not like I'm less than, I'm more than, because he is with me. And I'm not a big surface talker. I love going deep right away.
What to kind of shift the convo here a little bit, I'd love to hear with the acceleration of everything in this world after a couple of years ago with the pandemic and just the way the world is going now, I'd love to hear just your thoughts as a worship leader. Like, what do you think the church is doing? You know, and this can go from anywhere from doing worship online to just
Yeah.
what's your sense of having been through all this, being like a worship leader, seeing, you know, your music resonating in a lot of ways, probably because so many people were going through things that the song resonated, or Fires especially resonated with. Like, what's your sense on what the Lord's doing with the church right now?
Yeah, I think there's a couple sides. Well, there's more than a couple sides to that. That's
Sure,
a huge
yeah.
question.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of take it wherever you feel like.
I think there are those that saw this season as their freedoms being taken away, you know, and there were others that, you know, were very clear on, you know, no one can take my freedoms away. And I think it's been very revealing of, you know, there's the freedom the world gives you and there's the freedom Christ gives you. But kind of somewhere in the middle there, it's like we were created to gather. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I've always, you know, leaned on the side of like, you know, I will worship wherever I am, you know, whether it's just me, you know, whether it's, you know, I'm Paul in a prison cell. But that being said, I think there is something so special about gathering, and it's more of just, you know, a time when we can just celebrate, right? And I think if we can keep that perspective of like, you know, church is a time of celebration and surrounding those that really are in need, and we can be Christ's hands and feet to them. That's what's kept my heart in this season from not getting angry. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Because we're always going to be challenged. You know, every generation has their challenge that we have to overcome. And I think this is ours. And I think if we can realize as the church that our mission stays the same, you know, as worship leaders, our mission stays the same, no matter what comes at us. When we're dealing with gender stuff, we're dealing with, you know, pandemic stuff, you know, politics. We can get into the weeds on that so fast, but I think, you know, our world, you know, it kind of operates over here. And I think in a lot of ways, God's like, I'm right over here, guys. I'm just right. Just come join me in the work I'm doing. Yeah. And I think he's after our hearts and minds, you know, absolutely. You know, God wants all of that. And, but ultimately at the end, he's going to be doing the changing, and we are just, you know, the messengers. We are the facilitators. We are the vessels. Yeah. I love, you know, when, oh geez, there's that, the story of the, you know, the fishers of man, and Jesus says, you know, just bring them to me, and yeah, I will sort them out. Sure. Right. We love to sort them out, you know, and I think that's where we get into trouble, you know. You know, as worship leaders, it's enough showing up, leading people into worship, and share from your heart what God has put into you, but allow God to sort them out. Yeah, that's great. Could you give a little insight too, just like practically when you're leading worship, what's going through your mind? Like, how are you reading the room? Like, what do you, like, just tactically, what would you tell a worship leader? Like, how do you maintain some sensitivity? I asked too many questions, but take this where you want to go. No, I love that. You know, I think you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You know what I mean? Right. Whenever I worship, you know, there's many thoughts on this, but I'm there to worship God. Yeah. And if you want to join me in that, by all means, I prepare as much as I can, but then allow, you know, space in my heart for God to just impress upon me in the moment what he wants to say, and just try and be bold to stand out and say that. I think it's so vitally important that we create space. But if we are in a Sunday morning gathering where you can't always, you know, have these long interludes, and I think that's okay. You know, God's totally cool with that. You know, he'll use everything. He'll use the lack of space. He will get a hold of people. You know, we are participating in the work he is doing. You know, it's not the other way around. Right. I think the way we were made is we do need to take breaths. And when you think of music, music is less about the notes you're playing, and it's the space in between the notes, where the moments are had. And I think when we can create sometimes just the smallest moments, we create a space for someone to exhale and just maybe dig in a little deeper with what the Spirit is telling them.
Yeah.
What would be, say there's a worship leader is planning a worship set and they need one more song, and you had to recommend one of your songs this Sunday.
One of my songs?
Yeah. What song would you recommend?
Oh my gosh, that's there's so much, pointed at me here. This is so weird. I think Fires is one that is it's a wide angle lens. It's a message. I think you live life long enough, you're going to walk through the fire. Another song that I feel could work is a song called Turn It Around. And I think we always need to impress upon our hearts God's present working power. That, I'm someone who is so used to and good at doing things on my own strength, right? I can pay for it. I can, if I don't have enough money, I'll go work for it. I will call someone. I will call someone to call someone, and I think to a degree that can, God is, again, he's patient, he's kind, and he is not one to kind of take over our free will, until we surrender that over to him. And so, again, this season of life, walking through this illness of my daughter has really made me realize that I don't need to be strong. And the song Turn It Around is really just, I think, about recognizing God's present working power in our lives and that nothing is impossible for him.
What do you have coming up as far as tours?
Yeah. Okay, so March 10th, we start the Jeremy Camp tour with Riley Clemens. We'll be doing, I think, 20 dates with that one. I've got a lot of one-offs from in the spring, and then a lot of festivals over the summer. I think we just locked in our fall tour, but we haven't announced yet. So that'll be a big one, which I'm excited for, but I don't think I can reveal any details right now. So, but we're looking at booking for 2023. So I'm super stoked about that.
Cool.
Wow. I haven't even heard that year yet.
I know, right? Right. You're like, what did he say?
Thanks so much for being a part of this week's episode of the podcast. We would absolutely love to connect with you on any platform that you're normally on, but we tend to spend a lot of time over on TikTok nowadays, so we would love to find you over there. Look up the Church Collective, or you can look up myself, Ryan Lochi, or you can look up Chris Bellamy. We'd love to connect with you over there.